Versatile Mage. Chapter 45. Spirit Wolf. In the next second, this group of magic students had all turned into terrified chickens. As they were crushed together and collided with each other in their hurry to escape, they staggered as they fled from the mountain cavern. "Quick, run! Why are you still standing there?" Zhang Xiaohou looked at Hiyu off to the side, who had been literally scared stiff. Without saying anything further, he grabbed the girl's arm. Wind trail, shit. Zhang Xiaohou attempted to finish casting his spell. However, because his heart was beating so wildly, he was unable to complete it. With his prior practice, he was already able to proficiently complete the star paths. Zhang Xiaohou thought that magic was something he could handle conveniently. However, when he was 20 meters away from a dreadful magical beast, he realized that everything he had learned was complete nonsense. The formerly obedient stars were also scared like wild deer as they spun into chaos within his stardust. None of the students were able to cast their spells at this time. Each of them obeyed the basic survival instincts and ran toward the exit of the cavern. Brother Fan, quick, run. Zhang Xiaohou pulled the stiff Hiyu and ran toward the exit. At this moment, Mo Fan was no different from the rest of the students who were running away. The ones screaming, crying, and even those who had peed the pants were all mixed up. Under these circumstances, he was unable to completely focus his thoughts on casting magic. Not good, I have to run as well. Mo Fan was able to complete the linking of the 6th star, but when he was about to link the 7th one, his focus was broken by the roar of the magical beast. How could he use magic in this situation? With no other choice, he grabbed Zhuman, who was standing next to him. "Let me go, let me stall this one-eyed magic wolf. You others need to quickly calm down." Zhuman really was a tough girl who didn't care for her life. "Is there something wrong with your head?" Mo Fan directly grabbed Zhuman and carried her away. Although Zhuman looked harsh, she was actually just a frail little girl. After Mo Fan had cultivated the lightning element, his physical strength had improved a little, and thus carrying Zhuman while running wasn't too difficult. It wasn't that Mo Fan didn't give Zhuman an opportunity to use her magic, it was because, under these circumstances, even he could only link 6 stars. With Zhuman's cultivation being lower than his by more than a grade, how could she possibly complete her star path? At a time like this, it was better to forget that class president spirit. If you could run, then run. Mo Fan carried Zhuman as he madly rushed out. The sound of weeping as well as the panicked shrieks pierced his ears. Crap, no wonder those veterans at the station were ridiculing us. Their first reaction was to escape. However, if we escape, that's equivalent to killing us one by one. We used rope to climb up from the mountain pass, so we can at most run to the mountain pass. There's only one rope, which means the people who can climb down can be counted on one hand. Mo Fan's thoughts were still a bit messy. He was doing his best to calm himself down so he could think clearly. However, the dread of the magical beast far exceeded their imaginations. This feeling was just like watching a horror film. If you were only looking at the screen, then the film wasn't that bad. However, if you turned on the sound, the horror would immediately increase by more than a level. In this moment, the situation wasn't like simply watching a horror film. It was more like the monstrosity had just come out of the TV screen. It was right in front of you, so close you could clearly see the blood in its eyes. In this kind of situation, no one could actually keep calm. Mo Fan was running rather fast. After carrying her out of the mountain pass, Zhuman was already so scared that she could no longer stand. Too scary. This was far too scary for them. It was tens or even hundreds of times scarier than their nightmares. Heavens, the rope. No, I don't wanna die here. What's going on? Mu Bai and Zhu Zhaoting were still able to reason, but judging from their sorry figures, it was plain they couldn't use any magic at all. About 10 people had fainted from fear, and around 20 had attempted to climb down using the rope. However, the rope had disappeared. Right now, unless they were to jump directly. What do we do? Are we all going to die here? Zhao Kunsen was so scared that his entire body was trembling. Other than the spirit wolf's stinking breath, the place was already filled with a dense, foul smell. Students with wet pants could be found everywhere. The one-eyed magic wolf has chased us out. I'd rather fall to my death than be eaten alive. A male water element student cried out. Shit, there are so many who completely fainted in that cavern. Why is that guy not eating 'em, but instead chasing us out here? Zhao Kunsen said. Although Zhuman and Zhu Zhaoting were afraid, after they heard Zhao Kunsen's crazy words, they both glared at him. Running is useless. We need to unite and deal with it together. How do we deal with that? I can't even remember what kind of element I have. 300 meters away from the mountain pass was a stone platform by a mountain wall. On the stone platform were the chief instructor Zhangkong, Luo Yunbo, Pan Lijin, and the summoner Bai Yang. They were all observing the students trapped in the mountain pass from afar. The summoner Bai Yang couldn't stop laughing and covered his mouth. This was because they could see a student who had just peed his pants and gone completely limp. As the chief instructor saw the group of students who hadn't even used any magic, he shook his head. Disappointing. He had thought that these students of Tianlan Magic High had some abilities. Who would have known that not a single one of them could use their magic? He had already said these students were a group of useless magicians, and it seemed that was indeed the truth. The school had expended so many resources to cultivate them, yet, when they truly faced a magical beast, they ended up like this. The three teachers, Zhang Jianguo, Zhu Musheng, and Chen Weiliang, all looked extremely awkward at this time. They were very clear about the students' potential. The school usually pursued cultivation scores so that at least their reports would look good, but the practical skills would just pass by unnoticed. Practical combat was something they had to learn for themselves through real experience. How could the school teach something like that? Someone is using magic. Luo Yunbo's eyesight was sharp. He discovered that there was a white radiance flickering near the mountain pass. It's ice element. That seems to be Mu Bai. Zhu Musheng immediately began to smile. Chen Weiliang and Zhang Jianguo also hastily looked over. It seemed the first one to use magic was indeed Mu Bai. A white ice energy began to swirl around Mu Bai's area. Those ice spirits rushed forth like soldiers, quickly covering the four limbs of the spirit wolf that had already exited the cavern. Note that, Chief Instructor Zhangkong said. This is the disciple of the Mu ancient family. He has received the family's training and has a trace of the temperament of the ancient family's disciples. His mental essence and his ability to adapt are much stronger than the other students, Zhu Musheng quickly said. As expected of a disciple from an ancient family. While the other students were having a mental breakdown, Mu Bai had already calmed his heart and used magic. Being able to use the ice element spell ice spread under this dreadful situation, Mu Bai had already earned an outstanding grade of A. Currently, they just needed to see if the other students could calm themselves. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.